Starting over. Yes, starting over. Normally, if I would say starting over this early in the video, it means I'm telling the editor something went wrong, starting over. But no, this week we are literally starting over. I'm Cantor David Proser of Kempsville Conservative Synagogue, Kehillat Bet HaMidrash in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And this is our Torah portion commentary for Shabbat, Saturday, October 17th, 2020, corresponding to the 29th day of Tishrei, 5781. We thank Rabbi Adam Rosenblum, Rabbi Joseph Prauser, Rabbi Stephen P. Garfunkel, and the United Synagogue Torah Sparks for their various teachings and publications on this week's Parsha. This Shabbat, October 17th, 2020, we are starting over. We begin our yearly reading cycle of Torah readings anew at the beginning of Bereshit, the book of Genesis. Both the weekly Parsha and the entire first book of the Torah are called Bereshit, usually translated as in the beginning. The Parsha begins on page 3 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 2 of the Hertz. The section begins with the familiar story of God's creation. We just read this last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. Why do we read it again? We read it again because each time we go through the text, we understand it better. Even though the Torah does not change, we change, and our understanding of the text changes. Each repetition not only brings greater familiarity with the story, it also provides a more nuanced and more sophisticated understanding of every detail. With each rereading, not only do we see more in the text itself, but we see it from a different vantage point. One important idea that we need to remember as we delve into the story of creation is that this is not a science lesson. This is not an ancient history lesson. If we need to classify the genre of Genesis, it's theology. According to Rabbi Stephen P. Garfunkel, acting provost and assistant professor of Bible at JTS, the opening section of the Torah is not about the order of creation, it's about the creation of order. The ongoing religious message is that orderliness of our world is built into its very fabric. Getting back to the text, chapter 1 describes a very orderly process, a divinely planned creation, one that is entirely deliberate and not at all haphazard or without intention. Light is separated from darkness and land from water. Trees and plants of all kinds are created. The sun, the moon, and the stars are set in the heavens. Winged creatures are placed in the air. Swimming creatures are placed in the sea, and land animals roam the earth. Cosmos replaces chaos in 6 days of divine effort. Humankind is the crowning achievement of God's creation, introduced on the 6th day. The goodness of the physical world is asserted repeatedly after each day's creation, but it seems to reach its peak only with the creation of humanity on the 6th day. God saw all that he had made and found it very good. The 7th day is blessed by God as a sacred time of rest. Chapter 2 recasts the creation narrative with conflicting or maybe complementary details. Man is created first, later made complete through the creation of woman, all after a far less orderly divine process of trial and error. The moral education of humanity begins in the idyllic setting of the Garden of Eden. At the infamous urging of the snake, shrewdest of all beasts, the first humans consume forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. As punishment, God bans them from the garden, requiring them to work the land for food. The second generation of humans continues to interact with God. Cain and Abel each bring offerings as gestures of worship. Unfortunately, they also introduce murder into human history, as Cain, whose offering is rejected, kills his brother Abel. God forces Cain to live the rest of his life as a nomad. 10 generations of humanity are listed. By the time of Noah, introduced in the closing verses of this parsha, humanity's corruption is so pervasive that God seems to have despaired of his human creatures. He looks to Noah to salvage the world. The Haftorah for this week is from the book of Isaiah, verses 42:5 to 43:10, beginning on page 35 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 21 of the Hertz. The opening words of this Haftorah, which speak of God as creator of heaven and earth, give us the connection to today's Torah Parsha. It's addressed to the Jews of Babylon, who had been deported from Judea after the first destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BCE, and who were longing for the day when they would be free to return to the Holy Land. Isaiah consoles the suffering people by setting before them the sublime mission of Israel. God has called them to be his witness before all peoples, to be a light unto the nations. In the Parsha, creation is described as a one-time, completed action from our far past. In the Haftorah, according to the Eitz Chaim commentary, the theme of creation serves as the basis for theological reflection on God's ongoing concern for the world. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, and as always, thank you for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you'll always know when we post new content. Thank you again.